12 to 15 amazing facts about antediluvian period, or you can call it pre-diluvian, pre-flood. This is a period chronicled in the Bible between the fall of man and the great flood narrated in biblical cosmology. A lot of believers and theologians perceive the great flood as a myth. Others suggested that it was a local event, that it was not globally occurred. It seems like a controversial issue, but it is not, because Jesus and other apostles all suggested the occurrence of real flood. Of course, there are some ambiguity and controversies around the flood which are difficult to prove, but also there are quality truth which reveal the truth about the war between God and Satan. Well, let us start with the amazing facts in the pre-flood times that will give the foundation of the truth concerning those ambiguities and the controversies. Fact number 1. People lived many years in antediluvian times. Methuselah, for example, is recorded to be living longer than others. He lived 969 years, and the average of life expectancy of people in pre-diluvian time was 858. It could be 900 if we could include the life of Enoch, who was taken alive in heaven. The fact number 2 is that Adam lived almost halfway to the flood. Scholars and theologians have approximately said that between the fall of man to the flood, there was 1,656 years, which is approximately to 2,000. So Adam lived 930 years, which is halfway. Of course, Adam observed many things. For example, Enoch, who was the 7th generation person to be born, was taken alive to heaven while Adam was alive. The fact number 3 is Adam begot many sons and daughters. When you read Genesis chapter 5 verse 3, you find that after Adam's son Seth was born, many sons and daughters were born of Adam, which is contrary to many people's perception, who still believe that Adam get 3 sons only, which are Cain, Abel, and Seth, which is not true. There are others people who believe that God created many men. This is because they wonder how people multiplied if could not be other people, or how Cain find his wife. But the answer is simple. Adam has many daughters and sons. Fact number 4. The 7th generation from Adam through Seth was Enoch, who was taken away by God alive to heaven, while the 7th generation from Adam through Cain was Lamech, who slain another person and continue the cause of Cain. When you read Genesis chapter 4 verse 24, are the words of Lamech, who was so evil. He is reported to be the first person to be polygamy with his wife Ada and Zerah. So Cain generation is explained to the 7th generation from Adam only. Other people take this as the reason to view Cain generation as sons of men and the 3rd generation as sons of God, which also is not true. We're going to see that. Fact number 5. People in antediluvian time were able to see their great-grandsons and fathers up to 6, even 7 generations. This is because they live long enough to see all the 7th generation. For example, Adam could be able to see Methuselah, who is the grandfather of Noah, the 10th generation. So if you could be a son, could be able to see your father, your grandfather, your grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, up to the 7 forefathers. It was a privilege. We knew this when we divided the total average of the year each father died to the average of each man when he get his first son. All this information is from Genesis chapter 5. Fact number 6. There were 10 great generations from Adam to Noah, but almost 50 small generation, which is proportional to the time between the flood to Christ, which also is almost 50 generations. Now, due to the range between each forefather get his first son to when he died, which is huge, their descendant could be continue to be multiplied into the 6th generation while the father is alive. To other scholars, a careful study, they have proved that there is a great generation level. For example, Noah, the 10th person in the generation from Adam, Enoch in the 7th person in the generation through the line of Seth. But in each gap from one father to the son, there could be other descendant multiplied. Fact number 7, which is so amazing. A son was able to mate with his great-grandmother and conceive, means a baby could be born between a son and his great-great-grandmother. This is from the pre-flood times. There was a delay in menopause among women. Of course, now menopause to women happen in the 40s and the 50s. The average is 51 years and the woman is not able to conceive, which is different from the pre-flood time when women were able to bear children even when they were having hundreds of years. This is proved because also there were a few cases of polygamy in the pre-flood time, but the Bible continued to report that many sons and daughters were born, even to the age when their parents were so old. For example, the Bible reported that Noah get his 3 sons when he was already lived 500 years. Now it is important to understand this fact because it answers many controversial questions. It's a tough question during the lifetime of Noah when he cursed his grandson instead of his son Ham. Which question has not yet given answers, so this fact is worth being digested. The fact number 8 is that the information given of antediluvian time is so brief but very crucial. Nearly all important questions which are unanswered can be answered through the same given information. Even the years were so important. So these are the raw information in which other information can be obtained from the same information. Creation story, for example, being so important to us, it is well narrated and can be understood all eras of generations with careful study. Fact number 9, there were no gods in the antediluvian time, in pre-flood time. The information being so brief but mentioned the important things. If God could be there in antediluvian time, it could be mentioned because it's a sensitive topic in the Old Testament. Now this fact is very important because it helps us to understand the source of demons which appeared after the flood, which is narrated soon after the flood. People started to worship idols and the gods. So it's a worth being important foundation fact to the big picture of the truth. The fact number 10 is of course a controversial fact, the occurrence of Nephilim. When you read Genesis chapter 6, of course this is the most controversial chapter of antediluvian time when the sons of God met with human women. There is a video for this. But briefly, Nephilim were the hybrid between the materialized angels and the human women. Now there is various stories in the Old Testament to report angel being materialized. It is true that angels are spirit beings, but they were able to materialize means to bear the flesh. When you read the case of Abraham and the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, in the case of Jacob being fighting with an angel, as an example of materialized angels. Of course, the truth of this matter is very important to understand the war between serpent and the woman, in which the serpent or Satan aimed to pollute the woman's seed, but God could never allow that. This is why he brings the fraud, the great fraud, the global earth. This leads us to the fact number 11, which is talking about the reason why Noah and his generation were saved. When you read Genesis chapter 6 verse 8, it simply says that Noah found the grace in the eyes of God. When you read verse 9, continue to say, now verse 9, here the reading goes, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. So the generation of Noah was perfect. This is why God allowed Noah and his son to enter the ark. Now the fact that Noah walked with God is because Noah put his trust on the promise of God, who promised to save the world through the seed, the coming Messiah. Now the reality of the word in the antediluvian time, when you read verse 12, says, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Now the phrase flesh is repeated most times in the pre-flood time because most people, flesh, were polluted, already met with or associated with these materialized angels to pollute the pure seed from Adam, which will prevent the plan of salvation through the pure coming Christ as a Messiah to atone and pay the penalty of the fall of man, so that man can have the chance of being recreated again to his former purpose of existence. But the reason why Noah was saved is because his generation was pure. So God used Noah to protect his promise which God made to the serpent, that the woman's seed will win over him. So he destroyed every flesh on the land. This is important and prove that the flood was global. Fact number 12, there was a physical presence of the Eden Garden in antediluvian times. Genesis 4 verse 16 report that Cain, after departing from the presence of God, he go to the land of Nod, which it was in the east, where the Garden of Eden was. Although Eden was more than a physical area, means it was an environment and a lightful spot, which at the moment it was like an open door to heaven. But the Garden of Eden was destroyed by the great flood. This is why it cannot be found again on earth, although it was now suggested to be on Iraq, where those rivers flows, but it is not there. This is important because in antediluvian times there was no commandments, like listed commandments, like 10 commandments to guide people. God communicated with people and they share his promise. People were to be saved through the promise of coming Messiah, through the seed of the woman, in which people, most of them, lifted this, their faith, the union between the sons of God and the daughters of women, which born the hybrid, which were demigods, because it's a product between the mortals and the immortals. They forsaken the plan of salvation through the seed of the woman, in which only Noah was binding to it. Fact number 13 to 15 is combined like this. Most forefathers died on the lifetime of Noah, except Adam and his son Seth, who died at the lifetime of Noah's father Lamech, with the exemption of Enoch, who was taken alive to heaven. So reaching the time of the great flood, all forefathers were died, with the exemption of Noah himself. Methuselah, for example, being the first man to live longer, he died the same year when the flood came upon the earth. Few days after his death is when God brings the great flood. The only forefather who died naturally before his father is Noah's father, who is Lamech, died 5 years prior to the death of his father Methuselah. Lamech died when he was 777 years, at the time when Noah started to preach about the coming of the great flood. So it was a proper time for God to start another era of post-flood, in which God reduces the number of years so that protect the human race and make sure that this woman's seed is maintained to be pure until Jesus Christ was born. So the time of Lord was like the center from when the fall of man occurred until Jesus Christ was born. Now, before going to the post-flood